So a very, very warm welcome to everyone to the Sangha Live session today. And yeah, I hope that you feel well, you feel good about being here, feel happy to be stepping into this space. And yeah, it's the last day of the Monday to Friday sessions, and there's more coming up through Sangha Live. So do step into the Connect platform and have a look around, and you'll see upcoming events, and you'll already see that we already have listed there in the daily meditations Monday session, and yeah, there's other things coming up, and check your inbox or have a look around the platform to see what's going on. So as always, really lovely to be popping uh, into the place here, into our Dharma hall, into our gathering location, and see the beautiful messages that people are putting in there, that we're all putting in there. And yeah, really creates a beautiful atmosphere. And one of the key principles in meditation practice is actually the establishment of a more beautiful atmosphere through which we meet experience. So contributing to that is, something that's nourishing in this moment, but also hopefully nourishing and helping us to bring into the whole of our life. That when we can bring that atmosphere in which our attention flows through, that mood, that feeling, that resonance, that's an expression of freedom for us. Yeah, so really lovely to be here. And if you want to express that, really feel invited to use the chat to to put your name, put your word into this space. And yeah, don't be shy. Please do that. I'm just going to move a light over. We had that light before. That's a little bit more balanced. So my name's Nathan, Dharma teacher, mainly teaching with Gaia House in the UK. I'm based in southwest of the UK myself. And yeah, I'm really happy to be guiding these sessions. And I chose the theme, to be honest. What is a kind of an idiom, a phrase in English that we might just drop in. Yeah, to be honest, that wasn't the best film I've ever seen, or, to be honest, this way. But actually really thinking that in these teachings, to be honest, to be well aligned, to be noble, to be dignified, to be honest, to be clear, to be truthful about what we can be truthful about, and also to be truthful, be honest about what it isn't possible for us to know. All important parts and aspects of these teachings. But one of the elements that I feel it's really important is to see that our actions, our engagement, our creation of atmospheres, like we just spoke about, are there to create something that people and other beings can rely upon, can know that we are dedicated to non-harming, to know that we're dedicated to awakening, that we're dedicated to love. And we can see for ourselves what it is that deepest thing that we wish to have our lives dedicated to. And that's what I dedicate these teachings and practices towards. And I hope that's something we can all appreciate and tune into. So I have a little bit more reflection to share on this theme today. Then we'll have a half-hour meditation or so together, and then open out to any questions, any reflections that you have about these teachings, these practices that we've been doing, and also that intersection of practice and life, and how that's unfolding for you, and anything you want to bring in there that's helpful. Then I hope that we'll have time for everyone who wants to bring something in. And as has already happened here, do mention if things freeze, if the audio's not good, if we had earlier in the week that things went out of sync. There wasn't actually something I could do about that in that moment, but I think over time learning, I have a lot less. Uh, I don't know, a much simpler setup now so that everything can flow through a little bit more easily, even if it's not perfectly as quiet as it could have been. Um, so do let us know in the chat if things happen for you, and if you notice that someone's having issues and you're not, do feel invited just to say it's fine from my side, and that's also actually a good bit of honesty. It actually helps me quite a lot to know that, okay, I'm flowing through for some people, someone's struggling, but yeah, it's really helpful just to know if it's coming from my end, because then obviously I will deal with my things. And if we see it's coming from that person, we have Faith here today who can step in and give some kind of precise advice around, what platform you're on, if you're on a mobile device using the app, and various things like that. Yeah, I think on behalf of everyone at Sang Alive, any full apologies for any issues and challenges that you have using this platform. It's the best thing that was here to be able to use, and for most people, most of the time, it's giving us this opportunity to connect. So a lot of gratitude to all the tech folk behind the scenes who are making this possible. And when we get to the questions part of the day, we will say a bit more about that. So this session is actually about seeing how our practice here meets the world. Yeah. So we've gone through really significant areas. Our wise speech that we started with, such an important way that our practice intersects with the world, and also then reflects back to us how our speech is to ourselves, and how that internal dialogue is actually a reflection of our external dialogue. We might have picked up quite a lot of bad habits, so to speak, from our culture, from our upbringing, from our ways of bumbling through life, and actually just think, when I bring intentionality, is my speech harming? Is it actually creating disharmony? Is it actually sharing wisdom, or is it just sharing, blah blah blah, as some people say? Yeah, filling the airspace. So honesty is a very central principle in these teachings. Um, Honesty is what's called a parami, a quality that we can really lift up in really significant ways. That you can be kind of honest, and then you can really be dedicated to that. And there's a real quality of ethics, which is to say, expressions of care that come through in all of these paramis, these qualities we can really lift up. And Sila, ethics, is actually a gift that we give to the world. Yeah. And, lots and lots of these qualities that we can really lift up to a really incredible degrees. Our generosity can be something that we give so wholeheartedly, so willingly, so amazingly. And you can see that there are some beings in the world who really live that way. And it's inspiring. And that's what it means to kind of be embodying these kind of paramis. So interestingly, honesty gets placed there. Yeah. Truthfulness. And what it's also saying, or kind of stating, is that our actions, our engagements, our ways of being shape the culture that we live in. Yeah. And these kinds of qualities, it takes lifetimes to really perfect them, right? But what do we mean by that, by lifetimes? Yeah. And in these teachings, sometimes we refer to lifetimes. We might imagine, in the Christian mythology, we die, we end up in heaven. In the Buddhist mythology, you die and then you're rebirthed into the world. And it's unclear exactly if that really was the Buddhist words and you kind of like read through them. It's very difficult to know exactly. Um, what we do know, what we do know in our experience is that we're not who we were yesterday. We've changed, we've grown in some ways, and so has our sense of self. It's connected to the earlier sense of self, but it's not quite the same as the one before. And this we can take pragmatically and see if we take these teachings as this, it's going to take many lifetimes of being an honest being, but then I'm more honest than I was before. Yeah. And hopefully we've changed, but hopefully we've grown in that change. Yeah. Obviously we've changed. Hopefully we've grown in certain ways. And more wisdom, more understanding of this, that conditionality that we spoke about yesterday. It's like, oh, this comes, that sense of possibilities. Well, if I don't give so much energy into that, will this change in this moment, or will this change over time? Yeah. And the Buddha would say, everything I teach, you can test for yourself. I'm not just going to say, believe in this, that conditionality, take it on faith. He's going to say, when this is reactivity, demanding, contraction, when that is, the experience is dukkha. The experience is stressful, distressing, and it causes us to be shutting down, no longer in harmony with other things. What if we drop out the demanding? You'll see that stress disappear. Interestingly, when you drop out the demanding, you'll also notice that the contraction disappears. You'll also notice that the sense of self that was doing all of this also disappears. And they all fade out together, and dukkha fades out together. So you can test that for yourself. But if then the Buddha is framing all of this around, rebirth and future lives, past lives, you can't test that. You can't test that. But you can test how we are being reborn moment to moment as ourselves, but as a different sense of self. And I just want to share something. It's kind of like a framework for actually thinking about these teachings. And for me, it really resonates as something true through these teachings, a truly useful way of looking at these teachings. And recently read a book that was contributed to by Nalin Suarez, who is Sri Lankan, if I remember correctly. And the book was called Rethinking Karma. And it just kind of jumped out at me. It's a collection of essays edited by Jonathan Watts. And they're all, in some way, they're kind of connected to Buddhadasa, who was a great Thai Buddhist master. And it was really his view that the rebirth that matters is the one this self is undertaking in this moment. But they were very useful and, kind of brought together different ideas, and actually seeing Buddhism through lenses like Marxism and anarchism and all of these kind of things. And actually, what we rebirth is actually our culture and society. And we rebirth the hierarchies, the roles, but mostly the activities, the inheritances of activities from each other. Yeah. And so all of this is actually what's unfolding for us, and what our practice taps into. Every time we change ourselves, we start to change the culture, because the culture is not made up of anything separate from the community that lives it. Yeah, that inseparability, that amazing dynamism that's actually unfolding here, that we have to contribute towards. There's no possibility to step outside of this. How we live, how we act, any act affects the whole in some ways. Yeah. So we can bring this in, and when we find ourselves on a cycle of greed, hatred, delusion, and we might even say, it's just natural that human beings are that way. It's actually a cultural cycle that's affecting us or infecting us. Yeah. And also affected by us. It's a real call to act well in this world. When we understand that we are rebirthing our culture, and beings that are born now will be born into a culture where it's tolerated that you will be advertised against. Yeah, you will be impacted by advertisements, and you will be impacted by all of this buy, greed culture. Yeah, and this practice is a very strong call to say, no, when you've got enough, and then you start sharing. Yeah, it's that lovely phrase. Actually, I have it here. Can I pull it out in time? Oh, it's so close. There it is. Does this work? When you have more than you need, build a longer table, not a higher fence, not a higher wall. I hope that worked. That whole sense, we can really impact greediness through gratitude, through generosity, and we start to build a culture worthy of awakening into. Yeah. So there's a culture of hatred, of animosity, of fight fire with fire, and we actually find the way to bring through principles of non-violence, positive actions. And we start to build a culture, and we can actually see a way that these teachings, these practices, are ways um, that we can bring this into being. Yeah. So, what does this mean? It means that we shape the world through our practice, and through our perception, through our actions, and just encouraging that sense that each time that we practice, and this practice in all the postures and all the times of the day, each time that we practice, it is a radical act of saying that I care, that I want to shape this world. And that whole sensibility into our practice, we call this the bodhisattva principle, the bodhisattva mode, yeah, which is that I'm not just awakening for my own welfare, I'm actually awakening for the welfare of all beings. So, to be honest, I think that's what this is about. I think it's really radical, and I think it's really important. So, if that resonates, we can bring that into being as we practice today. Yeah. Inviting yourself into your posture for practice with a sense of doing this to shape the culture that we live in. Finding what's going to be that right posture for your deepest wishes, what you most value. It might be taking a stand. It might be surrendering into reclining. It might be walking through the space, the life of your existence. And it might be sitting steady. But in all of this, we're open to the possibility that we're contributing to life, for life. And opening to notice what you notice, and opening around what you notice. Support that sensitivity and spaciousness that begins to bring us into harmony with what we're attending to. And we just take a few minutes establishing ourselves into this practice. Noticing how the heart is, noticing how the mind is, noticing how the body is. Noticing how the breath is, how the sounds are. And knowing that this practice that we're doing is not in isolation, it will impact how we feel, which will impact how we act, will impact what we can tolerate or what we'll stand up for. And so it is a gift to the whole world, for all of that will interlink and interlink. A gift to the whole world to give ourselves a calm, soothing breath, to relax the body in any way it needs to relax, to open in a bright sensitivity through the whole of this body or the whole of this soundscape if we're listening. We are not separate. We can think of ourselves as separate, but we're interwoven, interconnected with our culture, with nature, with all of life. And what we do is not insignificant, but it's also not central, but it contributes. And in a moment where we decide to soften the belly, soften the gaze, to settle our pushing forward or pushing away, to settle our pulling towards us, those patterns that amplitude gets high enough, become greed, become hatred. It matters for all when we begin to soften those step by step, drop by drop, and arrive here in this present body being with these moods and emotions that are flowing through, these thoughts and sensations which are unfolding, for us to know, and we can know them in a non-judgmental way for the benefit of all beings. We notice, we open, and we welcome and allow for the benefit of all. The great teacher Joanna Macy would say, I am a flow through of sensations, thoughts, emotions. You can't pin me down as a this or a that. And also because our self is evolving, rebirthing. We're changing, changelings. And we could just say it's all coming through, even this sensitivity that can hear, that can feel. It's not really mine. It's not something I do. It's something that happens. It's nature. Even this awareness that knows what it knows, and even knows that it knows, isn't something we do. It's something that happens to living beings. If it went, where would we find it? If it broke, how would we fix it? Yet it's here. And let's use it for freedom. Let's bring that sensitivity where it's of most use. where it's allowed to be guiding us towards well-being, away from reactivity, as we out-breathe away from contraction, as we soften into the delicacy of this body, heart, mind moment. For the benefit of all beings, we'll use this sensitivity we've been gifted, open to the possibilities, the possibility of possibilities, to be more peaceful, to be more loving, to be more sensitive and present with the breath, with the sounds, noticing and opening, welcoming and releasing for the benefit of all. Once again, noticing what you notice with almost no judgment, just discernment, and no surprise if we're not with our chosen object of meditation, if we're not expressing our chosen atmosphere of attention that we want to bring in. That's normal. It's understandable. It's expected. Out of all the possibilities of where the mind could go, how the heart could express, there are so many more so-called distractions compared to meditation objects that we select. But what are we doing with this wild and precious life? And do we want to guide it towards peace, love, understanding? And what would that next step look like if we do? Can we have the discipline, the dedication, the devotion to not just be impacted by our culture, but also to impact in return, to contribute? This is not the most peaceful anyone could be, and it's not the most peaceful I could be, or the most loving. What would that be like? And let's see for how long we can sustain that, sustain the quality of that. How many breaths, how many sounds, how many moments. This is not the most peaceful, the most loving we could be. And if it's not, let's let go of that pattern. Softening the contraction, easing the demands. Opening the sensitivity and welcoming in and allowing to go. And we've dedicated this practice to the welfare and the benefit of all beings, in the beginning and in the middle, and now at the end. Feeling for yourself what this has also contributed to this being, because that also matters. How we feel, how we are in this moment, is our contribution. So just taking a moment to explore this conscious experience that you've cultivated. Almost in a sense to absorb it and absorb into it. Any peace, any calm, any presence, any sensitivity. And while being nourished to it, also letting it to flow out, flow into the world. As if by imagination or by feeling, this is for everyone. This is for all. And we begin transitioning, and may our practice, may our understandings, may our expressions be for the benefit of all beings everywhere, including ourselves. So, few elements we can draw out from today's session. If it feels different for you to practice for the benefit of all beings and it feels helpful, then there's no reason that you shouldn't always practice this way. Of course, it takes the conviction, it takes the, like we mean it. Yeah, it's meaningful, but we also mean it. I am practicing for the benefit of all beings. And that's how it has potency, that's how it has meaning. But at any point in time, we're part of a smaller circle, a smaller community like the one we're in now, yeah, with other beings here. And we could just be practicing for the benefit of them. That's still interconnection, that's still engagement, that's still all of these elements. But we might want to, if that's beneficial, what if I practiced for all human beings? Those in earthquakes, those heading to food banks, those who really need our help and support. Even in this meditation, this is what I'm practicing for. And then also, hopefully, that means that the way we act in the world is also shaped by that in deep intention, that deep sense of meaningfulness. But then, of course, we don't need to just stick to one species. There are many, many beings. And slowly, slowly, we can see actually this life that flows through me, that has consciousness, these two incredible miracles, life and consciousness, sensitivity that we can experience. I give all of this for the well-being of all beings everywhere. I give all of this for the welfare and benefit of all beings everywhere, including myself, because how I am, how I feel, impacts how the world is as well. There's no distinction that we can hold up and manifest that would make one thing one way or anything the other way. So as this is the end of this series, and those of us who are here present and coming on this day, February the 24th or whatever it is called where you are, we're coming to the end of this, but also some people will be watching this as a series. I heard beautifully from someone who wakes up early and goes back over the earlier recordings that are being shared on the Sangha Live platform. So this is always going to be available. And if you're there coming into what is for me the future, then welcome, welcome, welcome to be here. And I hope this practice is meeting you well. And I hope that the world is in a slightly better place by our dedicated practice. But I also want to mention that, this is a time where we can really reflect on what it means to have received these teachings and practices for free, freely. We paid our way to get into the internet and sign up and get an account, and then we could be here together. And that's really amazing. That's really beautiful that, this is available to us. Yeah. And it's available to everyone. Anyone who can have an internet connection can drop in and be here. No questions asked. Yeah. Such a sense of this is for everyone. This is for every being, just as our practice is. And so that Sangha Live chose to live it this way, to offer it this way, I think is a beautiful thing. And for myself, I only offer teachings on donation basis. Yeah. And if that can't be done, then I'm doing it for charity basis. The other evening I gave a talk, cost £10 to come and listen to it. It was lovely. Lots of people came, 40 or so bought tickets. Speaking about interconnection, we gave half of the money to the earthquake fund in Syria and Turkey and half the money to food banks, so that, those who can't afford to put meals on the table have somewhere to go to be nourished. And yeah, so I really want to say that that's the sentiment, that's the meaning of why we offer this on Dana, so that it's accessible to everyone. But then that lands it with us, and it's like, how do I feel about that? How do I feel about contributing, if I can? And I hope that it feels liberating. And the Buddha hoped that it would feel liberating, that he would say, when you know the power of generosity, you wouldn't allow a meal to go unshared. You wouldn't allow a moment to go disconnected. You wouldn't walk by when someone needs your help. And so this sense that this practice is for the well-being of everyone, that we are gifted with the capacity to have the sensitive consciousness that can begin to guide attention towards wholesome, peaceful, loving ways of living. Yeah. And let's do that. Let's build a longer table. Yeah. Let's dissolve the current fences and walls that are here. And so if you're happy to, and you're able to, you can go to sangha.live/donate to make a contribution. And there are people I know who, you can also do a monthly donation there, set that up as a regular donation. And many people actually have shared that when they've done that, and they see it pop into their bank account, it actually gives them that little blossoming of joy, which is exactly what the Buddha suggested should happen. When I'm generous, when I support something that has meaning for us, it's joyful in the giving, joyful in the intention to give. If you can't give, just feel the intention to give. I'd love to give. When I can, I will. And enjoy that. Enjoy that dedication. But also reflect upon all the acts of generosity you have done and you do. That's really, really beautiful. A beautiful contribution through your life. Being here is generosity. Showing up, doing this practice. And I hope that you know that you are doing it for the benefit of all. So we have a person willing to come on the screen. I didn't know if it said it didn't work. Let me see if I can find there. There we go. Let's see if that works for you, Jane. And you should be able to unmute and come through. Yeah, I can see you. I can't literally see you. Are you unmuted? Please speak. Oh, I'm not wearing headphones.
Am I still muted?
You're not muted. Your video's off, I think. But that's...
Well, according to my screen, my video's on, but maybe that's just as well. Yeah. Nathan, thank you for your teachings this week. I started to try and write down what my question was. Is it was to say that I lie on a daily basis to my neighbours and friends and family and people in the wider world. And I do that so that I don't receive a lot of anger from people, and also for my own safety. And that's because I've chosen as my contribution to shaping the culture and to my society to be a member of a control group. For those who don't know about medical things, that if there's a set of people who don't take a certain medical intervention, then they can have their well-being measured against those who do. But it's meant that I've had to lie to people because people get very angry with people who don't take medical interventions, and I've not been able to travel. That's starting to change now. So I live in a lot of cognitive dissonance of having to lie to people in this way.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So I think for the most part, this is kind of a sharing reflection, and I yeah, I really appreciate what you're bringing in there, and it's tricky, and it's very difficult to live with that kind of dissonance and feeling internally that I want to be honest, I want to be open, but I've had bad experiences with it. And I'm definitely not here to give advice about particular areas. I said earlier in the week, my expertise, if I have any, is in meditation. It's not really in like how we should live the whole of our life. There's a intersection, but the way you've just described your reasons for doing this, your contributions to society, anyone who has an understanding of actually how science works understands that there is always a control group um, in an experience. Oftentimes they'll be given placebos rather than just allowed to be controlled outside, just to make sure that everything's mixed up. But I understand that that's your intention in your action, and explaining it in that way to people um, feels like that's the best option for you to soothe your own inner dissonance, and also be able to interact in the world and say, this is my contribution, you have yours, and I respect that. And just trying to be non-argumentative and have our capacity to um, stand by what we've chosen to do. Yeah. um, yeah, but and if it fails, it fails, and in a sense that disharmony is explicit, and we can say, I don't want to hurt you, I don't want to harm you, and stay centered within myself and be honest. But maybe sometimes we have to express that, yeah, I don't agree with your stance, but that's why I don't do it, and I'm not asking you to agree with my stance, but just to tolerate that I'm doing it from my sense of meaningfulness.
Mm.
Thank you for bringing it in.
Mm. Thank you. Yes, I get a lot of flack, but and often choose not to explain to people because they get so angry, and some people won't let me in their houses and things like that. But it is the path that I've chosen. Yeah. Thanks, Nathan.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to everyone for being here and for, exploring this together. And, if I haven't said it already, I really want to emphasize it, that it's a real gift to me to be here. So it's not just that I'm giving this without expectation of something in return. And I didn't maybe clarify, I receive from the dana that comes to Sangha Live as well. But even if I didn't, I think I'd probably come here and want to be with you and practice together, and have my chance to explain and express what I think these teachings can do for us, and what we can do for the world through these teachings. So, thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure once more. Take care, and I hope to see you again soon.